What's happening, people? And once again, welcome back to youtube.com/Cubcamtv for this, another edition of the Cubcast, our daily news section we've been running for the last few weeks, basically exploring different things going on in and around the world of international music. Now, as you can see, this is a daily section we try to run, and today I wanted to get into a discussion regarding one of the biggest albums to drop so far this year from one of the most popular Afrobeats kind of associated artists in the world currently, an artist who is definitely breaking out across the world stage, and that is of course Omah. Now, following on from a very exciting run of releases over the last few years, we are basically going to have a look at the question, did Boy Alone flop? Now, you can see from the thumbnail that's what this video is about. As always, please make sure you are getting involved by hitting that subscribe button on the right hand side of the page, turning notifications on, of course, leaving a like, leaving a comment, and all of that good stuff. We're going to break down this as a concept, whether the album did flop, whether I think it flopped or not, and then obviously I want to hear from you guys in the comments about whether you think the album flopped as an overall listening experience more than anything else. Obviously, longevity is a big deal when it comes to the concept of whether something actually was successful. However, we're doing this quite soon after the album drop. We're doing it about 2 weeks after the album originally dropped, and we're going to break it down for you today. So, we do have the track listing for the project on the right-hand side of the page. I always find the track listing is a little bit better to kind of have on screen rather than just the plain album mark, because you can't really see much about it as a project, but there is the track listing, and I've made a ton of notes about this as an album, my general thoughts towards it. Now, the main sort of theme of this project is introspective lyricism, and as a concept, that very rarely hits the way it should do first time. When you look at any kind of either conscious album or any album that's very introspective or any album that's very kind of lyric heavy rather than designed to make tunes that are going to work on radio, that are going to work in the clubs, for instance, often, if you are skim listening, you'll kind of skip over those sort of meanings. And I think for me, I'm definitely guilty of this with this as an album. I always do a quick skim listen of every album that drops to basically see what tracks I should go and react to, what tracks would make sense for me to break down on the channel, for instance, and when I was on radio full-time, what tracks I would put onto playlisting. Now, obviously, this isn't the only reason people release albums. People do release albums for the concept of a long play listen. And having listened through this album now 3 times start to finish, one time when it first came out, one time yesterday, and another time this morning, and I've made a ton of notes on this as well. I basically can safely say that I misjudged the album first time listening. This is a very, very solid body of work. A combination of beautiful lyricism combined with moderately up-tempo beats throughout is what gives this one its unique nature. If you want to look at the more sort of club-orientated tracks, the first one that pops up is obviously Bend You. That is a tune that is designed for clubs. It's designed to kind of get people moving in and around the clubs. And next to that, you have Attention as well, which again was one of the biggest international Afrobeats-related collabs of the year so far. So when you then tie that into this project, you already have 2 tunes that do have that kind of extended appeal rather than just the plain sort of long play introspective nature of the project. And again, these are 2 big tunes. Standalones as well. I'm a Mess, for me, is probably my favourite track on the project, purely because it's something that I relate quite closely to. The lyricism is very, very introspective, kind of talking about kind of life not being where you want it to be. Again, the idea of never really being sober. Again, like these are all quite interesting themes. And again, they tie back to one of my favourite albums of all time, which is Trilogy from The Weeknd. And those are themes that are very, very strong on that as a project. So this is conceptually a very strong album. The fact that I'm even comparing it to that as a project is big praise from me. Just so you are aware, because that project for me, as you can probably tell by looking behind me, is absolutely untouchable. I've got it on my wall. Alongside this, a question that has been raised: does the lack of collaborations make this an underwhelming listen? Now, again, on a skim listen, potentially yes. When you're looking for bangers, when you're looking for heaters, when you're looking for tracks that are going to do numbers very, very quickly, potentially there is the idea that the lack of collaborations could contribute towards this one. Maybe not receiving the hype that you would expect an Omah album to receive. Only 2 collabs on there, of course, one with Teyawa and one with Justin Bieber. However, both of them are bangers. And I think to actually move for an album that is very kind of introspective as a primary concept into the sense of collaboration, you are already taking it out of Omah's hands. And this is an album that is so closely and carefully crafted by Omah, and it being introspective, it needs to be him doing all the design, and that actually makes sense the more and more you listen through this. The album does feature 2 or 3 tracks that had already had Billboard features as well. We are today breaking down whether this album flopped or not, and these are the kind of reasons against why it potentially did flop. Again, there are 3 tracks on this track listing that have already featured on the US Afrobeats Billboard chart in Woman, Understand, and Attention. I'm a Mess has since joined it on there. So you now have 4 out of the full track listing for this album. 4 of those tracks have featured on the Billboard Top 50 for US Afrobeats related releases. So the fact that nearly a tenth of the tracks on the US Afrobeats Billboard chart are Omah tunes off this album, that being kind of said, you can't really say that it's a flop of an album. Obviously, Love Domini has near enough every single tune on there. That's fair enough, but that is an anomalous scenario. This is what you wouldn't actually expect 4 tracks from an album to get into that top 50, in my honest opinion. So the fact that there are 4 out of the full track listing on there says a lot. Obviously, this album does have the international appeal, and it does have the star factor as well. When we actually dive into the collabs more specifically as well, Tell Everybody with Teyawa is beautiful. Sonically and conceptually, wicked lyricism and beautifully constructed landscapes of synthetic textures and playful melodies do make it a very kind of stirring listen. And if you're going to get someone to kind of do introspective kind of I suppose sonic assistance, Teyawa is one of the best people you can do for that. Both of the collaborations make a lot of sense. Justin Bieber brings in the international appeal, and Teyawa kind of surrounds you in this kind of cloud of just sonic mastery, and that's what Teyawa does with his vocals every single time. Production quality throughout this album is in fact incredibly high, something I think that is actually being quite slept on, just how well constructed the instrumentals are, the smoothness of the rhythms, the fact that all of these instrumentals are very, very full sonically and have a lot of different things going on, but yet never seem to be too packed for Omah's vocals to actually fit into. And again, the actual production quality of this album is very much being slept on. Maybe it's because people wanted 6 or 7 collabs on there. I don't think that it needs it. Now, having listened through this album a few times and breaking it down in full, the actual production quality does a ton. The 2 leading factors in this are the lyricism and direction of Omah and the production quality for me. They're the 2 kind of factors that make this a very interesting project. The themes of introspective lyricism tying into these swirling, very kind of deep, very kind of stacked up, layered instrumentals. Synesthesically, it works quite nicely because when you're talking about introspective topics, they are quite stacked up. They do tend to swirl around. You do tend to get lost in a kind of dreamscape trying to work things out. So it works, you know, there's that kind of, that link there when we're breaking things down. Again, it reminds me, there's a few tracks on there that remind me of other productions as well. I reminds me of a Jules production, the way it's kind of built with those wooden style percussive instrumentation pieces, and the overall bounce of the tune. Again, How to Love also contains that minimal bounce in there as well. So the tracks do have bounce. It's not all just sad and depressing. There is a kind of uplifting nature to this as well. I literally watched Bank's reaction to Benji the other day, and I watched his top 5 last night, trying to get kind of inspiration for writing this as a kind of section, as a review, more than anything else. And then when you kind of listen to people talk about this project, it makes you like it more. And that says to me that this is an album that needs to have a personal approach to it. You need to approach this as a person rather than like a music fan. You need to approach this as a being rather than like a computer trying to break it all down. But there we go. As an overall project then, you have to look at it as an overall project, not a collection of singles, which a lot of the time albums now are. They are a collection of singles that have been put together in a kind of singular package with a slight overall theme and a piece of artwork that ties everything together. This isn't a collection of singles. As a project, this for me is a story. It is a look into what Omah is doing as a vocalist, but also a look into where Omah is in life, and that is something that so many people can relate to. Again, the ideas of kind of depression, internal sadness, a lack of personal direction. These are things that everyone feels at certain points in time. I know I definitely have. I know I've been feeling them recently, to be honest with you. And maybe tapping into that a little bit more has been allowed me, I suppose, to actually enjoy this album more for what it is. It's an album you do have to open yourself up to. You do have to accept what the album is talking about and allow yourself to basically be along for the ride. And again, it is a refreshing listen once you actually give it the time of day. And you do have to sit down and listen to this all the way through a couple of times to really, really take it in. After that, you can pick your favourites. But there aren't many albums that I feel you will get a completely different picture of if you do listen to them start to finish. And this one is most certainly one of those. Again, the kind of concept of overall abstract nature within the arrangements, that could initially kind of confuse a listener. But it ends up being the project's leading charm, combined with, again, the quality of the production. And of course Omah's vocal textures, which are spectacular all the way through. Again, I'm very happy I ended up giving this album the time of day, and if you haven't and you're not particularly fond of it, I know I've even gone online and said there are only 2 or 3 bangers on there, and at the time, that's not necessarily incorrect, because there are certain, for the situations I was looking for, there are probably only 2 or 3 bangers that I would expect to kind of shut down a dance or kind of make mainstream radio appeal, you know? But the actual overall listening of the project is exceptional. This is one of the most kind of creative albums we've heard coming out of the Nigerian scene in a long period of time. One of the most kind of uniquely designed, one of the most beautifully textured as an overall project, and I'm very, very excited to actually put this review together, and I'm excited to go and listen to it again now I've got my thoughts out, because I'm going to enjoy it even more now I feel understood where he's trying to go with it a little bit more, and I could not recommend you actually all go and check out the album once again, because it is definitely worth listening through start to finish. If you've got maybe you've got an hour lunch break, go and listen to it whilst you're on your lunch break. Listen to it whilst you're going and queuing up for food, going and sitting down and eating your lunch, sending a few texts or whatever. If you've got an hour lunch break, listen to it then, when you're kind of doing other things, and just let it kind of wash over you like the beautiful selection of sonic waves that it actually is. So there we go. Guys, I want to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I've become a big fan of this album, and I'd really like to hear your thoughts on it as an overall project, not necessarily just individual tracks, but the overall body of work. I want to hear your thoughts about this. Do you think the album flopped? My honest answer is no. I think it's an album that needed time. And this is an album that will grow. This is an album that will slowly kind of seep into society in different ways, and it will become a seminal project for Omah Lay, despite the fact that it hasn't necessarily received that insane amount of coverage, an insane level of viewership just yet. I think over time this is one that will stick with people, and it will continuously kind of pulsate in the backdrop whilst other things come and go. But there we go. Guys, thank you for listening to this extended review of Omah Lay's Boy Alone album. You can check out all the different reactions we've done to tracks off the project. I think we've done 5 or 6 off the project in total, so do go and check those out on the channel. As always as well, make sure you are getting involved by hitting that subscribe button on the right hand side of the page, turning notifications on, of course, leaving a like, leaving a comment, and all of that good stuff. We are literally 3 or 4 subs away from hitting 40,000, so thank you to each and every one of you who has been involved and allowed me to go on this journey of musical discovery. Actually having the time to kind of break down albums like this is entirely down to you guys, giving the channel so many subscribers and so many views. So thank you to each and every one of you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we shall see you all next time. Peace.
Sounding so good right now. But they're sounding a bright and town.
Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel right now, Cubcamtv. Stay locked.